Hi, I'm Dan Rigler. I'm the apothecary at Apothecary's Garden, and today I'm going to show you how to make mustache waxes, beard waxes, and other grooming products using tree resins. You could make a mustache wax with just wax and oil, and it's easy enough, but tree resins have the added benefit of perming our hair. The mustache remembers the twirl much better when there's some tree resin, doesn't matter what kind. There are two types of tree resins. There are oleoresins that are pure resins with essential oils like spruce sap, pine sap, elemi, and there are oleogum resins, like most of the types of frankincense are oleogum resins. We won't talk about how to use them because we need a different approach with oleogum resins. Tree resins also have their individual aromas and their own blend of essential oils that comes hand in hand with them. Really, you don't need much beyond a fresh resin, some beeswax, and a little bit of oil or lanolin, and voila. Mustache wax is going to be under your nose all day long, so you want to be able to pick something that pleases you. This is a small selection of the types of resins you can use to make your own mustache wax. Each one is a little different, comes from a different country, but they all work the same as far as perming your hair. We have COPAL from South America and Mexico. We have elemi from Africa, frankincense from Somalia, frankincense from Kenya. We also have mastic from Greece. There's one type of frankincense that is perfect for mustache waxes, and from that I make my Abyssinian twirling wax. It's a great summer wax, withstands the heat without drooping. And each one has its own unique fragrance. There's pine and spruce sap, which are easy to collect locally if you live in the Northern Hemisphere, and very easy to make all sorts of products with, including mustache waxes, beard balms. I have my own spruce resin mustache wax, which is very popular. And I also have a frankincense carteri, absolutely frank mustache wax. So there are a lot of possibilities, and we'll use the same methods on each of the resins. I'll show you a method. Anyone can do it at home, any kitchen, just using normal kitchen utensils, pots and pans that everyone has. You don't need a special laboratory. Very simple formula and very satisfying to make. So I'm going to show you how to prepare your own resin-based mustache wax. It's a basic recipe, and you can play with it, and you can play with the proportions. I'm going to use COPAL from Mexico, white COPAL or sacred COPAL, mainly because it's a resin I haven't tried working with before. I never made a mustache wax with COPAL. A couple of things to keep in mind. Make sure the water level is aligned with the product. So it's not just warming the bottom of the container, but it's right where you need it. 2, never plunge a cold container, glass container, into a hot water bath. It can crack or explode. You'll lose everything. And never put your jar on the bottom of the water bath. It can crack very easily. So I always clipped into the side, a little bit raised, so there's water circulation underneath and it heats up evenly. Things to keep in mind. The basic formula is 1 part resin, 1 part oil, and 2 parts beeswax. And from that, we can adjust the beeswax, make it thinner or thicker, whatever we like. I'm going to start with 1 ounce of COPAL, 1 ounce of oil, and 2 ounces of beeswax. And I'm going to do it in 2 parts. The first part, I'm going to dissolve the COPAL in the oil, because it'll be easy to filter out the debris, and there's always some debris in natural resins. Bits of bark, bits of leaf. And so once we have our oleo resin, which is the resin dissolved in the oil, it's going to be a really beautiful fragrant oil, then we'll put it back in the water bath and add the wax to thicken it up. So this is white COPAL from Mexico. It comes from the Bursera bipinata tree. And it's collected by copaleros, people who specialize in collecting COPAL. Let's get my trusty scale tared. And of course, as long as you keep the proportions the same, you can do huge amounts. You can use a kilo instead of an ounce. But I suggest practicing first before you do that. This is very fresh resin. It's full of essential oils. It's smells intense, beautiful, lemony. It is a lovely, lovely resin. And locally, it's also used for, not just for incense, but for healing. There we go. 30 grams of copal. It's always important to take clear notes. You'll thank yourself in the future. And now we're going to add 1 ounce of fractionated coconut oil. You can use any carrier oil you like. You can use jojoba, almond oil, grapeseed oil, any kind of carrier oil works. I find fractionated coconut oil and jojoba have a very long shelf life, so when I produce products for the shop, I like to use one of those 2 oils, so I don't have to worry about products going rancid while people are using them. Let's tare, and now 1 ounce of oil. Now let's get this in the water bath. So, well, the water bath is ancient technology. It's technology we've been using for thousands of years. It is a thermal regulator, which means it only allows the heat to go up to a certain temperature, to 100 degrees Celsius. So you'll never burn anything using a water bath. Now we have to wait for the oil to heat up and the copal to dissolve in the oil. Again, copal is a pure oleoresin. It will dissolve in the oil, and all that will be left are little bits of bark and leaf. And it's already smelling strong. Very nice, lovely fragrance. Beautiful. It's going to make a beautiful beard or mustache product. Beautiful already. It's releasing its aroma to the oil. You can also make a mustache wax, and if you really like it, you can dilute it with oil and turn it into a beard balm. Or you can use the same recipe with copal, but instead of adding wax, only add oil, and that'll give you a serum. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of these resins have been used medicinally in traditional medicine, most often for treating skin issues. Some of them are also used for muscle pain and joints, respiratory issues, backaches, sciatica, bursitis, tendinitis. So basically we just keep fiddling around with it until it's completely dissolved. And it could, if it's a big chunk, it'll take longer. Smaller pieces will dissolve more quickly. So there's a wide selection, a wide variety of oleoresins that can be used to make resin mustache waxes. Generally speaking, most frankincense types don't yield themselves to oil because they contain water-soluble gum as well as essential oils and resin. So they don't break down in the oil. The exception is that after you distill the frankincense resins, what is left, the spent resin, which we also call a resin extract, is the pure resin of frankincense. Now that makes an excellent base for mustache waxes, beard products, salves, therapeutic salves, creams, serums, and beauty products. So frankincense on its own will not dissolve in the oil, but post-distillation resin will, and it retains all the healing properties of frankincense, all the boswellic acids, and some of the fragrance. It's a great product. If you want to use frankincense for your mustache waxes, that's the way to go. The copal is completely dissolved in the fractionated coconut oil, and notice it's almost clear, and we're going to pour it through the filter very carefully, not to burn Dan. There we go. If you really want to challenge yourself, you can try dissolving the copal directly in wax. If you want to make a really rigid, heavy-duty mustache wax, and then you can adjust it with a little bit of oil afterwards. But it'll be very difficult to put it through the filter. This could explode in the hot water. To let it adjust to the temperature slowly. So now we have a product that's completely clear, and you can see some of the debris that was in the copal. And basically the tree is cut and the resin drips out and is collected, and as it drips out it picks up little pieces of bark, insects, branches, leaves, whatever happens to be in the wind. And now we'll add the wax. Now you could shave the wax, you could get wax beads, you could grate the wax, which is really messy, a lot of cleanup afterwards, or do it like me and just put in chunks. I'll turn the heat up a little bit. There we go. So that was 1 ounce, a 1 ounce bar of beeswax, natural beeswax. So at this stage, what we want to do is test its texture and firmness. I put a little bit at room temperature, wait for it to cool, and I can already tell that I'd prefer a thicker moustache wax. At this point, beeswax is going to make it thicker. We aren't going to add any more resin to it. There we go. So I'm going to add another ½ ounce of beeswax and then test it again. And I'll keep doing that until I achieve exactly the consistency that I'm looking for. Now remember, you always have to write everything down, because next time you go to do this, you're not going to remember how many grams of this, how many grams of that. Always take clear notes. If you make something that's amazing, you want to duplicate it, and you won't be able to unless you wrote it all down. Our extra beeswax is now melted, and I'm going to check the texture. I made a little dimple in my aluminum foil. Let that cool. Keep in mind you can use harder resins. This COPAL is very soft and pliable. You can use frankincense furiana, which is a brittle oleo resin. It's what I use to make my Abyssinian twirling wax, and it gives it extra body and strength. It's clear, there's no debris in it. Now, there are a lot of variations. There are so many other things you can add to moustache wax. Lanolin, wonderful for the beard. If you're going to add essential oils, you want to add them during the cool down period, which is around 50 degrees centigrade or 125 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're going to add essential oils, keep in mind that it already has its own fragrance and essential oils, and do it in moderation. I wouldn't add more than 2% essential oils to any blend. Remember, somebody's going to have this under their nose all day long, so you want to be subtle with the fragrance. Now, when I say 2% essential oils, I do everything by weight. Let's say that we have 100 grams here. 2% of 100 grams would be 2 grams of essential oils. Now, you could measure out 2 grams of essential oils. It's a little tricky when you're using such small quantities. Or, rule of thumb is 20 drops per milliliter, and that's equivalent to a gram. So for 100 grams of moustache wax, you don't want to add more than 40 drops of essential oil. Remember, it already has its own essential oil. Now, since I'm not adding anything to this, I'm going to pour it. It doesn't matter how hot it is. As long as I'm not pouring it hot into glass, we should be fine. And, you know, you can find any kind of nice tins, antique tins. Again, there are many, many options that you can use for presentation. Now, all we have to do is wait for it to set. We can put our lids on, and it's ready to go. I can smell it already. It smells amazing. Absolutely beautiful. In fact, it's so strong. This COPAL was so fresh and so full of essential oils. I wouldn't add any more essential oils to it. It's already quite strong. So, as a recap, basic formula, 1 ounce of fresh sticky white COPAL resin, 1 ounce of fractionated coconut oil, and 3 ounces of beeswax gave me a medium hold moustache wax. You can play with these proportions, you can play with ingredients to your heart's delight until you find a combination that you really like and that suits your facial hair. All of these resins are available in my shop, apothecary'sgarden.com. All of the resins in the shop, they're my babies. It's taken me years to find the contacts, to travel to different countries, to meet with the harvesters and collectors, and expand my collection. And they're the highest quality that you can find anywhere. There's no point doing it if you're not going to do it well and if you're not going to do it in style. A lot of these resins are fairly traded and sustainably harvested. What's so important about being sustainably harvested? Well, we're losing a lot of our medicinal and aromatic plants all around the world due to unsustainable practices, over-harvesting, and bad resource management. The demand for essential oils is growing constantly, and a lot of our aromatic plants are getting cut down in the wild and turned into essential oils for profit. The frankincense trees in Ethiopia, Boswellia papyrifera, are in dire straits. The Ethiopian population is growing. More and more trees are being used for charcoal. They have their natural enemies, the borer beetles, and they have viruses to contend with. And what happens when we over-harvest? It weakens the trees. Their germination rate of seeds goes down from something like 90% to 18%, which means the more we harvest, less and less seeds are viable. Sustainability is really important, and I have to say that my sustainable collection is growing from day to day. If we can get products that are fairly traded, that no one was ripped off along the way, everyone was paid fairly for their time and their efforts, nature wasn't harmed, the tree populations aren't in decline, that's what we want to see. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Check out my other videos, how to make winter medicine from spruce and pine sap from local trees. And of course, you can get all of these products, all the resins, in the shop. Bye for now.